All right, let's dive into Laxmi Dental Limited. If you want to really understand their business, now's the time with this recent IPO. We're going right into their Q3FY25 earnings call transcript to figure out their business segments, what the industry looks like, and maybe what the future holds.
Yeah, it's really interesting that Laxmi Dental started small back in 1989, and now they're like a major player in dental products. I mean, crowns, bridges, aligners, they're kind of all over the place.
They really are.
Mhm.
And their revenue growth is impressive. Or like INR 61.6 crores is their highest ever quarterly revenue.
Mm.
But are they just doing better than everyone else, or is the whole industry growing?
I think that's the big question. We have to look at the whole picture. You know, the global dental industry is booming right now, and India is no different. People are more aware of oral health, they have more money to spend, and cosmetic dentistry is getting more popular.
So it's not just Laxmi Dental. Everyone is doing well.
It seems that way. But Laxmi Dental looks like they're in a really good position to take advantage of this growth. For example, the transcript mentions that the Indian pediatric dental crown market should grow at a CAGR of 14.5% by 2030.
Okay.
And globally, that CAGR is only 7.5%.
Wow, that's a big difference. So India is growing much faster than the rest of the world, and Laxmi Dental is right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and their business model is interesting too.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The transcript mentions B2BDC. They work with like 22,000 dentists all over India, and these dentists recommend their products. It seems like a smart move.
Yeah, especially with custom-made products like crowns, bridges, and aligners, it builds trust with patients, which is really important for dental care.
That makes sense. You don't want to mess around with your teeth. But what about this digital dentistry thing? I keep seeing that. The transcript says that 60% of their lab production in India is already digital. What does that even mean?
Right. Basically, dentistry is going digital. They're using things like intraoral scanners, iOS. It's like a digital camera that takes 3D pictures of your mouth instead of those old, messy molds.
So it's faster, more comfortable, and more accurate. I can see why people like it.
Exactly. And for Laxmi Dental, it's easier to manage, it's more efficient, and they could make more money.
Seems like they're doing well with digital dentistry. But they're not just focused on India, right?
No.
They already sell in 95 countries. And they want to expand even more.
Yeah, global expansion is a big part of their plan, especially with what's happening with the China Plus One strategy.
Can you explain China Plus One for people like me who don't know much about supply chains?
Sure. A lot of companies are trying to not depend so much on China for manufacturing. Maybe costs are too high in China, or there are political problems, or maybe they just want to try new markets.
So Laxmi Dental is doing that too, spreading out their manufacturing so they're not reliant on China.
Exactly. They want to broaden their horizons. They're even using money from their IPO to do this, investing in new machines and their subsidiary Bizdent devices.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is, huh? That's a big move.
It is. And any big move comes with some risks.
Which brings us to the question, what could go wrong? What are the downsides of these ambitious plans? Let's talk about that after a quick.
But before we move on to the risks, I wanted to point out something from the transcript that I thought was really interesting. Laxmi Dental is going to have 3 booths at IDS, the biggest dental conference in the world, in Germany.
Free booths. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it means they are serious about going global. They're not just testing the waters. It shows ambition and confidence.
It definitely shows they're ready to take on the world. But yeah, let's talk about those risks. What could get in their way? We'll unpack that after the break.
To really understand the risks, we should probably look closer at their business segments first. That's where we can see how they're making money and where the potential problems could be.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are their main businesses?
Well, from the earnings call transcript, it seems they've got 2 big ones.
Yeah.
Their traditional dental lab stuff and the increasingly popular aligner solutions. For the 9 months leading up to FY25, their dental lab offerings, which is like custom-made crowns, bridges, and all those prosthetics, that made up a pretty big chunk of their revenue, about 62%.
Wow, so that's their main thing, the core of what they do.
Right. They even have their own brand for that in India, Illusion Zirconia. But they're not just selling in India, they're also selling internationally under the Laxmi Dental brand, so they're kind of playing both fields.
So they're doing the dental lab products at home and abroad. That makes sense. What about the aligner business? Everyone seems to be getting clear aligners these days.
Yeah, you're right. Aligners are really popular. Nobody wants to wear braces anymore. And Laxmi Dental's aligner solutions brought in about 33% of their revenue during those 9 months. They're really tapping into that trend with their Illusion Aligners brand. And it's smart. They're using a dentist-led prescription model.
That makes sense. It seems like that would make patients feel more comfortable. But I thought they were also doing more than just selling the aligners. Like, don't they provide the stuff dentists need to make them?
Yeah, that's their vertical integration strategy. Under their Tagless brand, they provide the aligner sheets, the machines to shape them, even the 3D printing resin, everything a dentist needs to offer aligner treatments. It's a really clever way to reach more of the aligner market.
It's like a one-stop shop for dentists who want to do aligners. It's pretty smart. What about their venture into the pediatric dental market? They have that stake in Kidsy Dental, right?
Yep, they bought 60% of Kidsy Dental back in 2021, so now they're in the market for preformed pediatric dental crowns and stuff like that. It's interesting because they're not custom making these products, which is different from what they usually do.
So they're trying different things and branching out. That shows they can adapt. But is Kidsy Dental doing as well as their other businesses? I thought their revenue wasn't fully reported or something.
You're right. Because of Indian accounting standards, they don't include all of Kidsy Dental's revenue in their reports. But that's just a technicality. What's important is they're in a good position in this growing market. It's a long-term play.
So we've talked about their different businesses. They seem pretty diverse. They're growing, and they're using new technologies and trying new ways of doing business. But there's always some risk, right?
Definitely.
What are some of the challenges they might face?
Well, the first thing is competition. The market for dental products is getting more and more crowded, with companies from both India and other countries all trying to get a piece of the pie. Laxmi Dental needs to stay ahead of the game to keep their advantage.
So competition is a big one. What about their reliance on dentists to sell their products? Isn't that a problem if dentists start promoting other brands?
It's a valid point, but Laxmi Dental has built good relationships with dentists for a long time. And the trust they've earned through their model could protect them from this. They have a loyal network, which is really valuable.
Yeah, those relationships seem really important. But the transcript also mentions some potential problems with changing regulations in the dental industry. What's that all about?
Organizations like the CDSCO in India are getting stricter about things like compliance and licensing. This could be a hurdle for companies like Laxmi Dental.
That doesn't sound good. Is Laxmi Dental ready for these stricter rules?
It looks like they're taking compliance pretty seriously. They've already gotten US FDA registration for some of their facilities, and they have ISO certification across the board. So it seems like they're committed to meeting these standards, which could give them an advantage in the long run.
So they're on top of the regulations. But let's change gears a bit and talk about their plans for the future. The transcript mentions some pretty big goals. What stood out to you?
Well, their revenue target of INR 240 crores by the end of FY25, with a 13% to 15% PDA margin, definitely caught my eye. That's a bold goal, but it shows they're confident.
It's definitely ambitious.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned a 20% to 25% CAGR growth over the next 3 to 5 years. That's a really fast pace. They'll need a good plan to achieve that.
Yeah, they'll need a good strategy. And it looks like they have a few things they're focusing on. First, they're planning to pay back about INR 23 crore of their debt using the money from their IPO.
That's a good idea. Paying off debt would give them more cash and lower their interest payments, which is especially smart now that interest rates are going up.
Exactly. They're also planning to spend a lot on capital expenditure, about INR 43.5 crore for new machines and another INR 25 crore for upgrades at BizDent devices.
It sounds like they're really investing in expanding their capacity and improving their technology. That makes sense if they want to grow.
Right. They're putting their money where their growth plans are, both in India and internationally. And remember that China Plus One strategy we talked about?
Yeah.
That's a big part of their plan too.
So they're spreading out their manufacturing, becoming less reliant on China, and exploring new markets. It's a pretty comprehensive approach.
It is. But even though these plans sound good, we have to remember that the future is unpredictable. There are things that could happen that would affect their plans, and anyone who's thinking about investing needs to understand those risks.
So let's talk about those risks. What are some of the things that could mess up their plans? So we've talked about their business segments, their plans for expansion, and the competition they're facing. What about the Q&A from the earnings call? That's where it gets really interesting, right?
Yeah, the Q&A is always interesting. You can really see what investors are worried about. Like, a lot of analysts were asking about Laxmi Dental's margins, how they plan to improve those margins over the next few years, especially in the dental lab and aligner segments.
I saw that too. They really wanted specifics on their target EBITDA margin. And they were asking about how their expansion plans and debt repayment would affect margins.
And from what management said, they seem pretty confident that they can improve margins through things like operational leverage, more digitization, and automation. They think these strategies will let them grow efficiently without hurting profitability.
So, they have a plan. Another big topic in the Q&A was employee costs.
Right.
Analysts were curious about all the new people they've hired
Yeah.
and how that would impact their profits.
Yeah, makes sense. Employee costs are a big expense for Laxmi Dental. But management explained that they're hiring strategically, mainly in regulatory, finance, and sales, to support their growth plans.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially with their global ambitions. But analysts wanted more details on how they're going to manage these costs as they get bigger.
Yeah.
Did they say anything about that?
Yeah, they talked about digitizing and automating more of their production processes. They think that will reduce their need for manual labor and cut costs.
So, classic efficiency play. Use technology to do things better. There were also some questions about Kids Dental, their pediatric dental business. Analysts noticed a dip in performance and wanted to know why.
Management blamed it on delays in getting registration clearances in some international markets. They said it's just temporary and that growth will pick up once they get those clearances.
So, a bureaucratic holdup, but not a big problem with the business itself. There was another interesting question about their raw materials. With all this talk of expansion and diversifying their supply chain, I was wondering about that too.
Analysts wanted to know if they're having problems with supply chain disruptions or price increases, especially since they import a lot of their materials.
Yeah. Are they feeling the pressure from rising costs and supply chain issues?
They said they're not really having any major problems there. They talked about their diversified sourcing strategy, getting materials from the US, Europe, and Asia.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket? That helps them avoid risks from depending too much on one source or region.
Right. It sounds like they're being proactive about managing their supply chain.
One last question that caught my attention was about their strategy for growing their reach within the Indian market. They already work with something like 22,000 dentists, but there are over 200,000 dental clinics in India. That's a huge potential market.
Yeah, it is. They said they have a two-part plan. First, they're going to expand their sales team to bring in new dentists.
Okay.
And second, they're going to focus on selling their different product lines to their existing clients. So they're trying to strengthen their current relationships while also looking for new partners.
A two-pronged approach makes sense.
I think the Q&A gave us some really useful insights into Laxmi Dental's financials, their growth plans, and how they're managing risk. They seem to have a good plan for navigating this dynamic market.
It's been a really interesting look at Laxmi Dental Limited. They're definitely a company to watch as they ride this wave of growth in the dental industry, embrace new technology, and expand globally. Their future looks bright. But as with any investment, it's important to be aware of the risks and the potential rewards. This deep dive is just a starting point for your own research.
Exactly. Go check out their website, read their investor presentations, and keep an eye on their earnings reports. The dental industry is always changing, and it will be fascinating to see how Laxmi Dental adapts and innovates in the years to come.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Laxmi Dental Limited. We'll be back soon with another exciting exploration of a company or industry that's shaping the world. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.